What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the shop. I'm Steven.
Brandon.
From Trailbenders Overland. In today's video, we're going to be putting on the Eibach Pro Lift on our 2019 Toyota 4Runner Off-Road Premium. Some of the items that you're gonna need to do this install is your standard socket set, wrench set, floor jack, jack stands, and then your spring compressor. And if you don't have a spring compressor, you can go to AutoZone and you can just rent these out.
Borrow them. I think it's free. Borrow.
Yeah, borrow them. And lastly, I mean, if you have air. I mean, we don't have air.
We don't have air, but we just picked up this 1-inch Makita 1180 foot-pounds of torque, so we don't need air. This will do everything we need that air would have done.
It's hot out here.
Super hot.
If we can get about, I don't know, 100 likes on this video, it'd be greatly appreciated. 1 million likes. All right, well, let's get into the install.
Let's go.
So you're probably asking yourself, why are we doing a lift with stock wheels and tires? We actually just got the Method 305s. We're waiting on the 35-inch Grabber X3s, and then we need to find control arms in order to go up to the 35. So we're just doing a basic lift today. We're doing 2 in the front, 1 in the rear. Let's get this thing jacked up. Now that we got the wheel off, what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to take this bolt off for the upper control arm, the 3 bolts for the top of the strut, the bottom of the shock, this bolt right here, and we're going to try to get away with that and see if we can get this thing out and installed without taking the brake caliper off and all that other stuff. Pull your cotter pin.
Unbolt your sway bar end links.
We're just loosening up the upper control arm bolt. That's 9/16 up top.
Unbolt your brake line bracket from the spindle.
We're going to take this upper control arm, carefully hit the side of it, try to get this this bolt to go through. Just want to be careful not to pry into the actual boot itself, because then you'll have, you know, other damages to worry about. So. Just like that.
Just like that.
So now we're just going to loosen up the lower shock bolt. Okay. This is always like a pain in the butt in trying to get this thing out. So if you have a punch, that usually helps. Now that we got that bolt removed, this thing just will fall right out of place. Take a little bit of maneuvering, but out it goes. Now's the assembly of the shock itself. You're gonna need that spring compressor. We are going to go on the very bottom. This is adjustable. You can go however you like or put it to what you need it for, but we're just doing the very bottom. We're not looking for a ton of lift just because we're rocking the 31-inch tire and stock rims. So until we get all of that prepped and ready and we have more weight on the front, then we'll adjust accordingly. But let's get this thing going.
So now that Steven's got the strut out, we're gonna take this top cap off and go ahead and assemble the new Eibach setup. Spring compressor on. Sometimes they're a bit tricky, but I know it's always sketches me out when I compress these things, but they never fail. So put one on either side, and I don't know what size this is, a 3/4 inch, and you can just start to tighten them down. Okay, spring is compressed, shock is loose in there, and now we can disassemble. So just want to slide this off and then we'll be using this to assemble the new Eibach lift. This one's, oh, there you go. So side-by-side comparison, stock TRD off-road Toyota spring and the Eibach spring. Eibach pre-settles all their springs before they leave the factory, so you don't have to worry about any kind of a droop. So now we'll put it together. So this is what it'll look like essentially when it's done, but we got to compress the spring and now put this together. That might be enough. We'll give her a try. More compression needed. There's a lot of pressure there. All right, so with the spring compressed, now it's time to put the top part here together so we can put it in the truck. Put down washer, put back on the original top piece from the truck. Then comes with this new rubber bushing, down, new lock nut. And we'll tighten this down. All right, you just want to make sure that this seats correctly before you decompress or uncompress the spring. There we go. Here's the side-by-side. Now we're at the lowest lift, the lowest clip. There are 4 levels here, and we're at essentially 1. We're gonna put this in and see what kind of lift we have. We suspect it's going to be about 2 inches. We'll see. But out with the old, in with the new, and I'm gonna let Steven put this thing back in. With that.
So before we get back into the reinstallation, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Lion Energy. We're rocking their 100-watt solar panel and their Safari LT portable power. If you guys want any of this gear, the link will be in the description below, and we have it all for you guys. Let's get back into the installation. So now we just set the strut into place. Now you're just gonna wanna retighten to spec each and every bolt that you took off. So the 3 up top here, the upper control arm, this bolt right here, make sure you don't forget the cotter pin. And then we gotta reattach the sway bar, reattach the brake line mount here, and yeah, let's get to wrenching. Your cork specs for your upper control arm, this is 82 pounds. You have the sway bar end links, those are 52 pounds, and the rear shock bolt, that one is at 70 pounds. So now that we got the shock all into place and everything is torqued down to spec, now it's time to put the tire back on. Now that we got the wheel on, time to torque it to spec, which is 85 pounds. The front's done, a little tricky and time consuming because it's IFS, but the rear is straight axle, so it shouldn't be a problem. Next, we're going to unbolt the sway bar from the axle. Brandon's doing that now. We're doing it from the axle versus the end link up here because when we were doing this on Dylan's, we stripped it and had to cut it out. Time to pull the shock out, grab a 17 millimeter. So what we're doing is we're using an 8 millimeter wrench to get on top of the actual bolt and loosening it with a 17 millimeter wrench. We have the axle resting on the jack, so now we're gonna lower it so we can get the spring out. A little bit more. Here is the side-by-side comparison. This is pollo, okay? Pollo, asada. So now, time to put this in there. Bump stop goes like that. Easy day. Probably the easiest of the whole install. It's helpful to remove both shocks and springs from each side before you put the spring in. It's helpful to jack up the opposite side so you're able to articulate a little bit more and get the spring set. With the springs in, now we can install the shocks. Fairly easy. And now we're raising the axle to compress the bushing to get access to the thread on the very top of the shock. $18mm on the bottom and 3/4 on the top to keep the shock from spinning. Now you can reconnect the sway bar. And that's how you install a Stage 1 Pro Lift from Eibach. Brandon, thanks so much for helping me out today. Took about
10, 12 hours filming
with filming.
And 80 some degrees.
We gained 2 inches in the front, 1 inch in the rear. If you guys have any questions about this install, be sure to hit the comment section down below. If you guys like this video, hit that like button and consider being part of the Bidder Fam by subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Steven.
Brandon.
Out. Oh, hey there. You guys want to see this next to the 4th gen? Side-by-side comparison? Let's do that.
Oh yeah, it's way higher than yours.
When looking at this comparison, just keep in mind that our 4th gen has about roughly 1,000 pounds. This 4th gen actually has the same Pro Lift as our 5th gen. This one's actually sitting on the 2nd clip on the shock itself, and then this one's sitting on the lowest one. The frame is 3/4 higher on this with no weight. So we'll go to the back, we'll check out the back. In the rear, it looks like it's the same, honestly. Didn't even take that into account. He's rocking 33-inch generals, and I'm still on stock 31s. So, and I'm still higher. So yeah, this is a significantly higher lift. Wow. Anyways, can't wait to put the 35s on. If you guys want to follow along, be sure to subscribe. Steven, out.
If you haven't yet, head over to our online store to check out the awesome gear we use and all the new merch. Link in the description below.